Welcome back to Church of the Master United Methodist Safe Sanctuary online training, Lesson 5, Abuse, Accidents, and Incidences. My name is Bev Pankos, the Director of Youth Ministries and the staff member responsible for the Safe Sanctuary policy. Let's get going. The first thing we will want to talk about in this session is confidentiality. Volunteers must report to the age level staff program member or pastor if a minor discusses harming him or herself or others, committing a crime, or being abused. They need to know up front from you if they start to share something like that, that those instances cannot be kept confidential. It's against the law for us to have that information and not report it to child services. There are limits to confidentiality when we are talking with youth. Questions about such cases or other issues of confidentiality must be discussed promptly with the age level program staff or the pastor. Any serious issues discussed in confidence should be reviewed with one of the staff. Any serious issues discussed in confidence should be reviewed with one of the staff, who will also protect the confidential nature of the discussion. If you are at a program that has both children and youth ministry components to it, and you see the age level program leader for the other age level first, you can report that to a staff member, and they will make sure the information is passed on the proper chain of command if it is something that must be reported. But they also can help you with the that piece of confidentiality, whether it is something that we have to report or not. Conferring with the minister on sensitive issues is not considered breaking confidence. Next, we're going to look at our response procedures for accidents and incidences. Accidents and injuries. In order to ensure proper attention is given to an injury or accident involving a child or youth, an accident report is to be completed by the adult supervisor immediately following the incident. Injuries requiring medical treatment beyond basic first aid, like cleaning a wound and putting a Band-Aid on it, should be verbally reported to the director of the activity or to the church office within 2 hours or as soon as it is practical. Injuries requiring EMS notification should be verbally reported immediately. Completed injury report forms should be filled out with and filed with the senior pastor and should be kept on file for 5 years. The parents of the injured child or youth should be provided a copy of the completed report. Copies of the report should also be given to the facilities manager and the director of youth ministries as well. A few more notes on this. The reporting of accidents and injuries is also something that we have to do if we have an adult hurt themselves or have an accident in the church as well. If there is an event where we have to call EMS in the middle of a worship service, which has happened in the past, you need to report to a staff member as soon as possible, like immediately. If worship is going on, obviously reporting to the pastor may not need to be happening. These steps are also important if there is an adult who gets hurt or injured in our building or coming into our building when worship is happening. Whenever that is, it needs to be reported to a staff member. If it is something that requires EMS notification, you need to let a staff member know as soon as possible. Obviously, if it's in the middle of worship, the pastor will not necessarily be able to stop and attend to that need. Therefore, you can find another staff member during worship. We know that the children's minister is busy also during worship, so maybe not the best bet of someone to contact. However, Director of Next Generation Ministries is there. We have several music folks who are on staff who would not be busy during worship, but in attendance. And so think about who you can contact. If you're not sure, look for one of the ushers. They also can make sure that a staff member is informed so we can be available for anything that the EMS might need from the church. Or a child who bites someone else, but there is no broken skin. That is still an incident that we need to report and keep notice of. From time to time, there are incidents that happen that do not cause injury and are not considered to be abuse, but do raise a red flag and should be documented. Examples of this would be a youth who gets into a fight with no injuries, or a child who bites someone else, or perhaps an adult who loses their balance and falls down some of our stairs, but's not hurt. But we do want to keep all three of those types of incidences in our files, so we know if it becomes a continuous incident that we might need to step in and figure out what exactly is going on. So you will pick up an incident report from an age-level staff member or the pastor. We do keep them in the office, so if you cannot find one of those, there are some in an envelope that is on the cabinet, hanging cabinet. When you first walk into the office, you sort of walk right towards it and it will be there. We will be glad to help you fill out that form. There are parts of it that the different parties involved will need to acknowledge. If it's something that has happened between two youth or two children, then the parents of both parties do need to sign on that copy as well. If you have any questions at all about the incident report, ask an age-level staff member or the pastor, and they will be able to help. Response by church workers to the allegation of abuse. First of all, we need to look at child abuse by the numbers. 5 children will die today from child abuse. It happens to 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused by the age of 18, and 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused by the age of 18. Those are some sobering statistics. But the one that gets me every time, since I started training at Church of the Master with safe sanctuary policies in 2009, this statistic has not changed. A report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds. Just stop and think about all the time you have put into watching these videos and break that down by 10-second increments, and how many children have been abused, and then a report has been filed every 10 seconds. That has not changed in 12 years. In fact, I can tell you it's not changed as a statistic in much longer than that, because in 26 years of training people on safe sanctuary policy, that 1 every 10 seconds has continued to be the statistic. I've checked on it all the time. I check on it regularly to see if maybe that's gone down and I just have an old piece of information, and I do not. It's still that often. There are different types of abuse that we need to be listening for. There's physical abuse and there is physical abuse, which is in the blue, sexual abuse, which is in the red, emotional abuse, which is in the orange, physical neglect is in the yellow, and emotional neglect is in that light greenish blue color. We can see that physical abuse and sexual abuse take up a lot of our pie chart, but we cannot dismiss emotional neglect or physical neglect that might be happening for a child or a youth. And if you hear of that, we do need to report that as well. And this will also tell us, the other pie graph on this graphic is perpetrators of abuse. Blue is parent, red is non-parent, and orange is someone who was unknown. We do need to keep all of these things in mind as we are in ministry to our children and youth, that they might have something that has happened to them, that the church is a place where they feel most comfortable to share it. And so we do need to keep all of those pieces in mind as we work with our children and youth. Our church has a commitment to our children and youth, and you as a volunteer on behalf of our church have a commitment to our children and youth as you volunteer. As caring Christians, we are committed to protect and advocate for our children and youth that are participating in the life of our church. The church is entrusted to provide an emotionally safe, spiritually grounded, healthy environment for our children and youth and adults in whom they are protected from abuse. It is our legal and moral responsibility to report suspected abuse whenever it comes to our attention, regardless of where it takes place. The abuse does not need to happen in the church building or from a church member or church volunteer for us to report it. If we hear it, we need to report it. There's that catchphrase, if you see something, say something. In this case, if you hear something or see something, then you have to say something to the authorities. We will report suspected abuse to stop potentially existing abuse and to prevent further abuse. We need to stop it if it's happening currently to a youth or child. If it's happened in the past, we still need to report it because it is a violation on a child or a youth that is not acceptable. To report abuse is to witness to the world the love and justice of God. Let me say that one again. To report abuse is to witness to the world of the love and justice of God. Reporting abuse is a form of ministering to the needs of those crying out for help. I think that really bears repeating again. Reporting abuse is a form of ministering to the needs of those crying out for help. If abuse occurs, it is our intention to act as an advocate for all affected persons, providing support, information, assistance, and intervention. We seek to create a climate in which healing can take place, and that healing can be for the victim and the alleged perpetrator, and the victim's family, and the perpetrator's family, and the congregation in general, if we have abuse that is taking place within some realm of our congregation, be it whether it's happening at the church or in the home or outside the home as well. So we have general principles for responding to allegations of abuse. There's a lot in here, so take a listen to it. If you need to repeat it, listen it again. As you are in this section of our training, and I have not mentioned it sooner, if you want a copy of the entire Safe Sanctuary Policy, you are welcome to have one. On the church webpage, you will see a link to download the PDF file. I would suggest downloading it and then keeping it on a electronic device that you have access to so you can refer to it, but maybe not print the whole thing out. It is about 50 pages, and you can also go through and just print out the sections that you feel like you would want to keep a hard copy of, or let us know at the church office and we would be glad to print a copy out for you. We're just trying to save some trees with 50 pages of documents, of our document that you may only need the 30 pages of, or whatever. So just keep that in mind. And now we'll return to general principles for responding to allegations of abuse. If abuse is suspected by, observed by, or disclosed to a volunteer and or paid staff member of the church, that person shall report the incident immediately to an age-level staff member or pastor. When responding to allegations of abuse, the church and its representatives will keep several key principles in mind. Let me say that one again. To report abuse is to witness to the world of the love and justice of God. Reporting abuse is a form of ministering to the needs of those crying out for help. I think that really bears repeating again. Reporting abuse is a form of ministering to the needs of those crying out for help. If abuse occurs, it is our intention to act as an advocate for all affected persons, providing support, information, assistance, and intervention. We seek to create a climate in which healing can take place, and that healing can be for the victim and the alleged perpetrator, and the victim's family, and the perpetrator's family, and the congregation in general, if we have abuse that is taking place within some realm of our congregation, be it whether it's happening at the church or in the home or outside the home as well. So we have general principles for responding to allegations of abuse. There's a lot in here, so take a listen to it. If you need to repeat it, listen to it again. As you are in this section of our training, and I have not mentioned it sooner, if you want a copy of the entire Safe Sanctuary Policy, you are welcome to have one. On the church webpage, you will see a link to download the PDF file. I would suggest downloading it and then keeping it on a electronic device that you have access to so you can refer to it, but maybe not print the whole thing out. It is about 50 pages, and you can also go through and just print out the sections that you feel like you would want to keep a hard copy of, or let us know at the church office and we would be glad to print a copy out for you. We're just trying to save some trees with 50 pages of documents, of our document, that you may only need the 30 pages of, or whatever. So just keep that in mind. And now we'll return to general principles for responding to allegations of abuse. If abuse is suspected by, observed by, or disclosed to a volunteer and or paid staff member of the church, that person shall report the incident immediately to an age-level staff member or pastor. When responding to allegations of abuse, the church and its representatives will keep several key principles in mind. Reports of questionable behavior must be taken seriously. Questionable behavior should not be ignored or allowed to circulate without concern for the integrity and reputation of the accuser, the accused, and the church. Non-church related allegations must be taken seriously. Young people frequently choose to confide in church youth workers about abuse happening outside of the church. It is important that reports of this type are also handled very sensitively and appropriately. The church's policies also apply to reported allegations not related to church activities or workers. These policies are appropriate for allegations involving church activities and non-church related reports of abuse. Immediate pastoral response to the victim. Whenever abuse occurs, it is essential that effective, immediate, and compassionate care be provided to the victim and their family until procedures. Whenever abuse occurs, it is essential that effective, immediate, and compassionate care be provided to the victims and their family until the procedures outlined below are completed. Ordinarily, responsibility for the care will fall on the senior pastor, but may be delegated to the most appropriate church employee. For example, director of children's ministry or director of youth ministries for that particular situation. Care should be taken to consult with the civil agency or agencies that are investigating and responding to the reported incident. Allegations may occur in a variety of ways. Since the church cannot control how a report will surface, it's important that officers, employees, and volunteers follow the steps described below. These steps will ensure that the allegations are channeled to the appropriate person and the problem is not compounded by an improper response. So let's look at reporting to civil authorities. Steps to follow. Number one, ensure the protection of and tend to the immediate needs of the child, youth, or older vulnerable adult as the situation requires. Number two, contact the age-level staff member and or pastor. Number three, immediately notify the proper authorities, the immediate supervisor, the designated church safety sanctuary representative, or an adult in charge of the event. This person will A, provide written documentation concerning the incident of the on the designated form. B, notify the county office of the Department of Job and Family Services, or sometimes we refer to it as Children's Protective Services. That is actually all in one in Ohio. This is a requirement of the law. Note, do not attempt an investigation on your own. This should be left to professionals who are familiar with these types of cases. The Franklin County Department of Children's Services Abuse Hotline is 614-299-7000. Notify the pastor in charge. If the pastor is the accused party, the designee will notify the chair of the Staff Parish Relations Committee and the district superintendent. And then give written documentation to the pastor and or the chair of SPRC that this allegation of abuse has happened. Mandatory reporters are someone who is required by law to report if they suspect or know that child abuse is occurring. So here are some of the folks in profession who are mandated reporters in Ohio: attorneys, audiologists, child care workers, children's services personnel, clergy and program staff of a church, daycare personnel, dentists, nurses, physicians, both hospital interns and residents as well, podiatrists, psychologists, school authorities, employees and teachers, social workers, and animal control officers or agents. This is not an exhausted list of people, just an overview of people who are mandatory reporters in the state of Ohio. If you, as a volunteer, professionally, are someone who is a mandatory reporter, we ask that you do let the church know that you are reporting and help us through that process. We will make sure that we are clear with the authorities that it was reported to you and you to us to follow church policies. But you would also be perfectly within your realm to have that information and to tell a staff member that this is happening and that you need to call and report it. Once you have told us, we are also mandated reporters. So we would call as well and say, we are aware of the situation and that our volunteer who is a teacher was also calling you to let you know this is the same information for the same incident that has happened to someone in our care at Church of the Master. Notification of parent or guardian. The pastor or designee will notify the parents of the victim and take whatever steps are necessary to assure the safety of the child or youth until the parent or parents arrive. It's important to emphasize that the proper authorities must be notified even if the parents or parent does not wish the incident to be reported. Once someone hears it who is a mandatory reporter, it needs to be reported. If one or both of the parents is the alleged abuser, we will contact the proper authorities and follow their advice about notification of the parents. If it is a parent alleged abuse of a child or youth, we will not release the child to the parents until we get word from the authorities that that is an okay thing to do. We will have authorities with us immediately in case of a time where it's reported and then parents are already there to pick up a child, we would call authorities to make sure that that child or youth do not return home to an abusive situation if they have told us about it. And any questions you have about any type of scenario when it comes to thinking through our policies on what you as a volunteer would be responsible for, please feel free to reach out to us. I am glad to talk with you about those issues as the Safe Sanctuary staff member, but you can also talk to your age level minister, program person, or the pastor, or a Stephen minister. They have been trained on abuse and prevention of abuse and all of those pieces within their Stephen ministry training, or our congregational care leader. Those would be other people. If you have questions about reporting abuse or what it might look like, feel free to do that. Another place that you might want to look is if you're interested in seeing more about abuse and how we would notify parents or guardians or all of those pieces surrounding abuse on a child or youth, there are many resources available. Feel free to contact me and I will send you in the right direction. If it's specifics about Church of the Master Policy, I'm willing to and able to talk with you about that. If it's just more training that you want, I can also provide a list of online pieces that you can do. After abuse is reported to the proper authorities. All right. After having reported the suspected abuse to the proper authorities, the incident is to be reported immediately to the church's attorney, the church's insurance company, and the district superintendent of the Capital Area North District, of which Church of the Master is a member of. The district superintendent will be the one who reports the allegations to the bishop's office. Do not try to handle this experience without the proper professional assistance. If the accused is a clergy, which would be a deacon or elder member of an annual conference, it does not have to be someone from our annual conference to call this to our DS, and then pass it on. They would pass it on to our bishop. Rather, if there is someone who is United Methodist clergy, even if they are a member of another annual conference, local pastor or diaconal minister, the provisions for what to do are found in the 2016 Book of Discipline of the United Methodist Church, and that must be followed. A list of emergency numbers are available to staff at all times. So here, when we're talking about reporting to the proper authority, we are contacting the district superintendent regardless of whether this abuse allegation was about a person in our church or not in our church, and whether someone's a clergy person or not a clergy person. We let them know because there could be aftermath that comes out about the church reporting the allegations. Even though allegations are reported anonymously, a lot of times things can be figured out, and we just want to make sure that our hierarchy of the church, both local and in our conference, in our district, and all those things, that we have followed those procedures. If you want to look at the provisions in the 2016 Book of Discipline, you can just actually Google 2016 Book of Discipline, United Methodist Church, and you can find a free copy online that you can look at through Cokesbury. 2016 is the most recent copy of our Book of Discipline in the United Methodist Church. It is decided upon at general conferences every 4 years. The last one that took place for this purpose was the 2016 conference. 2020's conference was postponed because of COVID-19 and currently is scheduled, I believe, for fall of 2021. But that still remains to be seen if that happens. So it could be the next book is a 2021 Book of Discipline, it could be 2022. There was a special meeting in 2019 for those of you method nerds out there who are like, but Bev, that 2016 isn't the last time we had a conference. We had one in 2019, and you are correct. However, that was for a specific pieces of legislation and not the conference as a whole. So anything that was decided in 2019 would actually be put into the next book of discipline, which is the 2020 book, which could be the 2021 book, or maybe the 2022 book with all the fallout from COVID-19. Once the proper authorities have been contacted and the safety of the child or youth is secured, the pastor or designated person may tell the accused that a report has been made. And that is up to the discretion of the pastor or in consultation with our church attorney and things like that, that it is okay to tell the accused that a report has been made. If the report is being made on a staff member or volunteer of Church of the Master, that person shall be relieved temporarily of his or her duties until the investigation is finished. If the accused is a paid staff person of the church, arrangements should be made to either maintain or suspend his or her income until the allegations are cleared or substantiated. And our media requests through the West Ohio Conference Director of Communications or their appointed designee to make sure that we are properly reporting what we can legally to the media. It might not be someone from Church of the Master who even does that type of report to the media. It could be the West Ohio Conference Director of Communications. It is up to how they see this playing out, whether we as a church can make a statement or they make one for us, or we just say no comment until we have more things in place and the authorities have all they need for the report and for the validation of charges that have been made. Thank you for watching this video. Please take a moment to click on the Google form in the link below in the comments to take a short quiz on this lesson in our safe sanctuary policy. We thank you once again for the time that you have given to certify or recertify on our policy so that we can do the best we can as a congregation to protect our children, youth, and or older and vulnerable adults from abuse situations that perhaps they have faced in their for this stuff.